That's so you're like, could you imagine? You know, when I was in law school, it was during the writer's strike,
and the people on the internet hear us.
Law students to write in Steve Colbert as our water board student, and he totally got it, and then had to formally resign.
And the folks who are on the Zoom,
we're like Steve Colbert. Please,
down.
Bring us joy. You know what I mean? Sorry. So I just came in super hot. It's kind of so cold outside. Sorry.
Yeah.
I did capital.
Can folks on the Zoom, if you can hear us, can you give us thumbs up?
All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So without further ado, we're going to get the
Sure, I can share that you don't have to.
Since I'm in it now, let's just share. Like I'm sharing the screen, but if you can monitor the chat, actually, that would be helpful. Just come up there. So welcome everyone to the November meeting of Central Park United Neighbors. Just a little bit about our group. CPUN is the Registered Neighborhood Organization, or RNO, for the Central Park community. We provide a working forum for the residents of Central Park to participate in creating, developing, and fostering a vibrant urban community dedicated to social equity, environmental responsibility, and economic opportunity. At our meetings, we facilitate the discussion of key issues with neighbors, engage in proactive problem prevention, and problem solving. CPUN is committed to providing an inclusive and welcoming environment for all members of our community. Our mission is the betterment of the city of Denver by providing a forum for the residents living in Central Park to discuss and resolve issues, a network of communication, a means of acting on matters of importance to the community as a whole. We promote public service, civic discourse, and collective efficacy. We're an all-volunteer board of Central Park residents and a registered 501c3. So just we'll give a quick overview of tonight's agenda, and then we'll jump right into our guest speakers. So we have with us at the Cube, Senator James Coleman, Representative Jennifer Bacon, and Representative-elect Lindsay Gilchrist to give us overview and preview of the 2025 legislative session that will be starting up in January, and Q&A with residents. At 7:15, we'll have updates from our community partners. And then we'll have our board hour, committee report outs, the treasurer's report, and then kind of a number of kind of board discussion topics, the update on our community survey, development updates, and a look ahead for the first quarter of 2025. So I, again, would like to introduce our special guest, Senator James Coleman, Representative Jennifer Bacon, and Representative-elect Lindsay Gilchrist. I'll actually stop sharing the screen while you're speaking. You'll have, so each of you would like to take a few minutes to introduce yourselves, both to those of us in the room and those online, and talk about your legislative priorities, and then we'll kind of open it up to a Q&A. So I'll stop the screen sharing for now. Okay.
Mr. President.
You know what's so funny? We always talk about, thank you very much. We always talk about which chamber is the upper chamber. And now that it's my turn to speak, I'm the upper chamber all of a sudden. No, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. For those of you online, I just want to say thank you to Liz, always inviting us and plugging in and engaging. And so we really appreciate you inviting us to be here. Again, my name is James Coleman, blessed service state senator for District 33, which is comprised of 7 and 8, our amazing state representatives, representative-elect. And again, that's from the airport all the way downtown to 5 Points, from 56 all the way to 17th. Used to be Colfax, but Chris Hansen took that from me. It's all right. It's okay. No, I'm not mad. I was blessed to run for my reelection and just wanted to thank you all, not only for supporting me, but for supporting my colleagues. We don't take it for granted. It really means a lot that people fill in a bubble next to our names and say, you know, we trust you to go down to the Capitol and do the work on behalf of our community. But also I was blessed to run to be elected as the next Senate president. And for me, what that means is that I get a chance to not only continue to represent you all, but I have an opportunity to serve the other, well, 34 senators, because it's the Senate president is the president of the entire Senate, not just the Democrats. But we do have 23 Democrats, 12 Republicans, and my responsibility has been to engage the other 22 Democrats all summer in their districts: Frisco, Morrison, Longmont, Fort Collins, Colorado Springs, Pueblo, wherever you need me to go, I'll go. And then also it's been to engage every state department. So you name it, there's over 20 state department directors. And I've had a chance to engage with all of them, from healthcare to business to Department of Corrections. I met today with Major General Clellan for the National Guard for the Veteran Military Affairs. So all the issues that we talk about and the people who do the work, I do that work to meet with them. Look, I'll tell you that we all had priorities prior to recent elections. And the priorities were to continue to focus on the work that Colorado's asked us to do, and we've delivered. If you look at just the way elections turned out across the country, comparable to our state, a lot of folks feel like we're doing a great job. And so what that means is that we continue to do that work, but also that we are also being proactive and being counteractive. We're hearing a lot of concerns regarding immigration, regarding civil rights and DEI, reproductive health, LGBTQ rights. You know, I could go on, but environmental policy and healthcare, whether or not our Department of Education will be eliminated. These are very interesting times. And it's our responsibility as a collective to make sure that we're hearing from you all. We share with you policy priorities, but we really want to work collectively to figure out what your concerns are and how we can address those concerns. So the last thing I would just say is, whenever you have a priority, and it's human nature, you will prioritize you over other people. So my priority, as is the representatives, our priorities are you. And in terms of policy, my priority is to focus on supporting my colleagues in the Senate in particular on the issues that we're all going to collectively continue to work on. So I don't just get 5 bills like everybody. I got 500 now. So I'll be in every single conversation. It'll be very fun. But I look forward to engaging with you all, and I'll pass it over to the representatives, and then we'll want to hear from you all.
Yeah, well, thank you. I don't know. I was like, I don't.
Appreciate that. Park Hill. Park Hill.
Okay, I'm sorry. It is very cold, and we just got off an election, and everything is literally starting. It literally started today for you, so we are definitely loopy. I apologize. Thank you so much for having us. For those of you I haven't met before, my name is Jennifer Bacon. I represent House District 7, and I will say I'm so glad to be sitting here with Rep-elect Lindsay Gilchrist, but I will say all of Central Park was mine until 2 years ago. I'm just kidding. I'm not really, but so the part of Central Park that I now represent, House District 7 used to go all the way to Monaco. Mm-hmm. And now we pretty much stop at Quebec, above I-70, above Target, with the little sliver. So if you live pretty much Prairie Meadow, north, to 56. I am your state representative. Thank you. I also want to say welcome to neighbors, because while we're sitting here, I'm pretty sure an apartment complex was built. And so the last, couple of years, we've had like a whole bunch of new neighbors. And so I tried to get it to as many doors as I could. Many of you may have gotten a piece of my literature on your door, because I just literally was like, hey, Northfield kids, can you help me get the word out? Because there's so much new growth in these areas. So it's been really exciting to see our neighborhoods take shape. I have the privilege of serving on the judiciary. Well, he's the president. He can talk about what's what. I'm still waiting, but I'm pretty sure I might continue to serve on the Judiciary Committee as well as the Education Committee. I was on school board before being the House District 7 representative, and I am an attorney. And so these two committees are very fun, but we just heard about, look, I'm a Democrat. I know you all are a C3. You may not be able to political. I could be political. I'm going to be political. No, I'm just kidding. But given, what we've seen in the last 2 weeks with our new presidential election, I think these committees will play a critical role in, quite frankly, fortifying the state and protecting its neighbors, and also neighbors across the country. If you were not aware, we are a big blue island in a sea of red, and people do come here for support from other states. I also have the privilege of serving as the assistant majority leader. I do hope that Northeast Denver is really proud of your representatives, that our colleagues can see us with real leadership potential, and that they trust us in the support of them, in support of the state. So I do want to say thank you to House District 7, Senate District 33, and House District 8 for, your trust in us for our service. And we're really proud to be able to represent you, but also to deeply support others across the state. And so the values that you espouse that were important enough for you all to elect us really do carry. We are the ones that can probably say some things and take some risks where others can't. But also we do so in the furtherance and protection of our neighbors, our environment, our health, and so much more. So what I typically run these days, I am very grateful to have the confidence of you all. Hopefully, I'm not saying you didn't have to vote for me. I hope you did. God bless us all, okay? But the things that we've been able to take on as Northeast Denver representatives are everything from, how do we support people in staying in their homes? In the last couple of years, we've been doing a lot on HOA, and being able to help people protect the equity in their homes.
Yeah, thanks for that.
I know it's a big, hard conversation, but Colorado's been going through, inflation has hit us. We are going through inventory questions, although the back end of House District 7, if you've ever been up Tower Road, there's like 9 new complexes, which they were not here 4 months ago, right? But we are trying to help people figure out what is their relationship between their boards, whether it's Metro District HOAs. And since home values have so grown, my little condo, when I bought it, was $150K. It's worth $315,000 now. And what does it mean to be able to hold on to that equity or be able to use that to build wealth? Those are critical questions for many Coloradans. And the other thing that I do that I've taken on is environment and air quality. Along with transportation. Those things are inextricably linked. We are a district that I-70 runs through. I love our quote unquote express lane, except that it's $7, to go 10 miles. I don't know. I might work on that a little bit. I will, because quite frankly, but the question is coming in regards to what do we do with rail? I work to help kids get free RTD fare, right? Especially for our kids out here. You know how long it takes to get downtown. We couldn't even do field trips in Green Valley Ranch because it took 2 hours just to, on a bus. And so transportation and air quality are going to be seminal turning point issues for this state. It's 2025, which is scary, and we still have our looming gray cloud over the Front Range. We are a state with 1 million more people, which means 1 million more cars, and we still dig for oil, and we need to figure it out. And so the last thing I'll say is I do have a civil rights background, and I do take a look at the issues in public safety. The police chief and the sheriff at this point are good friends. I think Sheriff Diggins' kids go to Northfield. Side note, but we all want to be sure that our approach to public safety is one where our kids can be supported and that people are held responsible for their wrongdoings. And so it's been a really interesting journey. We've made a lot of investments. I think some of the things that we're focusing on in maybe other neighborhoods a little bit further east are figuring out how to do youth violence prevention. Because just across Peoria and Havana, we have different issues in different demographics. So these are things that I work on. I will say, to echo what the Senate President has said, oh my God, that's the first time I've said that. Congratulations. Okay. For what it's worth, we are going through the things that we feel like might be coming, given Project 2025 or whatever you want to call it, and figuring out how Colorado can survive it. Our neighbors just to the east of us have been targeted by the president, with the city of Aurora and the county in Arapahoe County. And so we're trying to figure that out, as well as if Department of Education gets cut, can Colorado withstand the loss of federal funds? And so I think some questions may be put on the table that might be beyond the legislature. We will have to talk as neighbors across Colorado about ballot measures. We're going to have to talk about how to prioritize. There were some really great things on the ballot and some really wonky things. I don't know how HD7 really feels about big cats. But what I do know is when we did, for example, Proposition 130, which was $350 million in support of law enforcement, the legislature was like, okay, where is that going to come from? So I do think that if you all really want to get engaged and know what's going on, you've got just great representatives. And I'll let Representative-elect Gilchrist introduce herself. But what I know from her is she's born and raised Denver and loves the city and loves anyone who really wants to engage. And I hope that you will know that about us, that we can somehow be approachable and accessible and really can bring your voices to the Capitol, while also saying thank you for allowing us to, have some of these tough conversations, in a way that can be supported by community. So I hope that's helpful. I have no idea how long I talked and I'm still talking.
All good.
So I apologize. Thank you.
All good.
Thank you, everyone. Okay.
Just the opposite when you're like in debate. You're always supposed to want to go first.
Right.
And then let the others, and it's hard to follow these kind of amazing humans that, so I'm Lindsay Gilchrist, Rep-elect for HD8, which was the seat was formerly held by Leslie Herod. I am so excited to be working with these folks and have known them for a while now, and it's a real privilege. As Rep Bacon mentioned, I'm from Denver. My dad grew up in Park Hill. I went to East High School. East in particular was really shaping for me, and really feel like it's such an honor to, sort of got into this government business because of a class I took at East. So feel really excited and honored to represent the district that is so much a part of who I am. And I ran because I believe government should be a place where we come together and solve really big challenges, much like Senator Coleman and Rep Bacon feel as well. That feels particularly daunting after the election, and all the more reason to fight hard to ensure that we can really solve problems in our government. And I think I was overwhelmed and excited about the election results in Colorado, and that we can be a beacon of hope. That was what I heard from so many people, is like, that was the one bright spot in a really hard next morning. And so, I'm so excited about working on a whole host of issues. I, worked in and alongside government my whole career. I started in DC worked for Senator Kennedy until he passed away, and then worked on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and have been working on issues like criminal justice and healthcare and housing from an advocacy perspective, and then now do a bunch of work in child welfare. My wife and I have 3 kids. We fostered and continue our certified foster parents now, fostered and adopted our 2 youngest, and have just, the state makes those decisions about child welfare. And so really excited to dig in there, already sort of working on bills related to child welfare and fighting for kids in foster care, and they get all the services and support they need to thrive. And also really interested in working on gun violence prevention. And I think particularly seeing obviously all the things that have happened across the country in gun violence, but particularly in the East community in the last couple of years and in our public schools, and really want to focus on youth violence prevention. And then, as I mentioned, healthcare, and particularly mental health care access. My two oldest kids have disabilities, and we've navigated that process to ensure that they have the right supports, both from a mental health perspective and the physical health perspective, and we can just do better in Colorado. And so really excited about digging in there. And then just to kind of echo what Rep. Bacon and Senator Coleman said, have spent, I don't get sworn in until January 8th, but this is the third retreat, 2-day retreat I've had in the last 2 weeks, so I'm full of information and excited to get started. But we spent a big chunk of time with the caucus in the bipartisan retreat, just talking about how we protect Coloradans, and I think being really realistic about where we need to shift if we do, to really make sure that our communities are protected, and particularly on immigration, LGBTQ rights. I was just talking with a organization that was saying that their hotline is blown up from folks calling worried about their safety in the trans community in particular. And we just have to stand up, particularly for trans kids. I mean, it's just, we have to be that beacon of hope and light. So yeah, looking forward to making sure that we do shift in those areas where we need to, and kind of be ready for whatever comes our way. And just a true honor to represent this district, and really looking forward to getting started in a hard environment, but an environment that I feel like we're ready and willing to jump in. And so looking forward to hearing all of your perspectives. I'm so grateful that you invited me to come, and really looking forward to this. This is the first of many conversations about how we can work together.
Folks have questions? Well, let's see if there are folks who have questions, I guess, in the room. And then we'll also open it up to the Zoom as well. I think on the Zoom, if you have a question, you can kind of do the little raise your hand icon, but I guess we'll just kind of get started here. David?
Yeah, I've got a question specifically for Representative Bacon, since you were mentioned. I was reading the Denver Post earlier today, and there was an article about how you, and it specifically highlighted Representative Mabry and maybe one other person from Bridge, about like the unionizing worker protections legislation that you're going to prioritize or work on at the beginning of the year. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that.
Sure, that was fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, who wrote it?
Yeah, right.
I'm kidding. So today we announced a bill called the Workers' Protection Act, where what we're simply doing is removing a requirement for a second vote if folks would like to unionize. So this law has been on the books, I believe, with the 30s or 40s, and it's a procedural roadblock. The issue, it does not allow folks to unionize. It allows them to have the conversation on if they will unionize. And so it's about a vote between employees if they can move forward. So this bill, of all the things, is straightforward in saying that if employees do want to unionize, old statute said that they'd have to do 2 rounds of votes to get to like 60, 70%. And so that high percentage still remains, but it will only be 1 round of voting. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
Along those lines, I'm Jamie Hodgkins. I am worried about all of the things and how we're going to protect Colorado. But I'm a professor at CU Denver, and I spent last summer sort of working on ways to encourage professors to continue to do diversity, equity, and inclusion work, but also thinking about how we protect professors because we're seeing things like happen in Florida and Georgia where whole DEI departments are just eliminated and people are fired. And wondering if there's a law we could get passed through the state that would protect all educators for doing that work.
I think of a few, that's
Sorry.
sorry. You know, I'm actually meeting with a handful of professors from CU Denver as well as Metro about this issue, as well as studying the impact of institutional isms on public health. So for what it's worth, our Department of Health in 2021 declared that racism is a public health crisis. And we need to be able to assess our policies to understand the impact, you know, to understand any impact in regards to institutional or systemic racism, sexism, and whatnot. And they are interested in creating an institute. New Mexico has an institute on JEDI, you know, justice, equity, diversity, inclusion. I'm trying to figure out if universities created it or if there could be a statewide creation of an institute, which I do believe we can do in our state system, like within CSU or CU. The other thing that has come up with this, particularly in the last couple of months, is actually unionizing.
Exactly.
Right.
We have no bargaining right.
Right. And then there's the whole adjunct conversation where you all make $1,000, right? You know what I mean? Like for like 8 months, you make $1,000. So for what it's worth, the legislature is interested in ensuring these programs persist. I am trying to figure out legally how we can protect them. I don't know if I'll get a bill together yet, but I'd like to actually legislate that it is a compelling state interest. If you all, I'm going to, lawyers? Okay. Right? Okay. Right. Okay. You're going to become a lawyer. This whole conversation started in like 2017.
Real deep.
But I think, so with the affirmative action case, for example, the case that undid it, we believe the holding and the findings said that diversified campus or student body or whatever the blank is no longer a compelling state interest. I think that we can legislate that it is, and we can also particularly legislate that we have an interest in JEDI or DEI or even programs to elevate students of color or disenfranchised kids as a matter of remedy for intentional discrimination in the past. Does that make sense? So like, you know, CU would not let brown people into university in the 40s and 50s. Metro is a whole thing. If you're Latino, Chicano, it was a whole movement, right? Metro, you know, the whole Auraria campus was like an extreme, you know. And so I think that's what we're looking into to figure out how to do. However, I do know that Democrats are in solid footing with our presence, and it's something that we are interested in protecting. And so we're trying to find the statutory ways to do that, as well as to figure out how to help you as a matter of workforce retain your jobs as well. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I mean, and the kind of the second part of that is, so we have no collective bargaining rights. We have a union, but it's weak because we have no collective bargaining rights. And the other thing I wanted to just bring to your interest is that the other elected officials are the CU regents. Right. And CU regents can determine how money is distributed among the CU system. And we are the most diverse campus on every metric of diversity. And we're not given enough money by the CU system.
Yeah.
And I mean, the truth is, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And I think CU Denver is usually down about 10 million a year, which is like less than 1% of the overall budget. And it should, you know, like being the most diverse campus is our strength. It's the only way to survive, right? In the coming years. Yeah. And yet it also means we need more services. We need wraparound English as a second language services. We need services for better writing centers. Like we've got so many veterans coming back after being away from school for 10 years. We need the writing center for them. Yeah. We need more money to pay professors more to provide the services that our students actually need.
Yeah, I would just add, I am an adjunct professor. I'm an adjunct professor at DU, and even in a private university, I've been pushing them to make sure they're improving when it comes to their diversity as well. We're having conversations with Dr. Angie Piccioni, who's the Director of Higher Education, former state representative, Black woman, and she has been really anxious to engage in these conversations too. It's funny you talk about veterans because, again, with Major General Clellan today with the National Guard, we're talking about getting funding for more folks who are serving or have served honorably discharged to be able to go back to college and get a degree. And we were looking at the numbers of different universities that are providing support for veterans. And again, CU wasn't at the top. And when you talk about CU Denver in particular, it is really serving the population of people from Colorado. Y'all probably heard of the what is it called? Is it the college paradox? Where it's like we have like
We don't graduate our own kids. We're importing college degrees. We're
right,
importing-
right. And so we have a lot of kids who are coming from outside of the state of Colorado. And that's fine, right? But like, what happened to our own kids? Can they not go to CU Denver? You guys are one of the prime examples of kids who actually do come from here. They go to college at your campus. How do we support you more in that? So we'll have more conversations with Department of Higher Ed and just figure out what is it that we can do. It's interesting. I thought about Brett Bacon because she championed the reform of our School Finance Act. And what we used to do is we used to fund schools based off of affluency of a neighborhood, whether or not you lived in a certain place, determine how much money your school got. But now she has made it possible to make it so that schools are funded based off of students who are at risk, students who are English language learners, students who have special needs. What if we did the same thing with higher ed? I mean, what if we were able to figure out a way to fund students in our communities who are Colorado, students who grew up here, as well as, students who are, working at, going to your campus. I just think there's a way for us to address that concern. A lot of universities love kids from out of state because they get higher tuition.
Right.
Although, yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll add just quickly too, as a matter of Colorado civics, sure, our budgets are flexible and we should prioritize, but higher ed is not something that we constitutionally have to fund, and it's usually on the chopping block. Last year, we had to figure out how to put another 100 million into higher ed because all the university systems were considering raising tuition by as much as 8 to 11%, and that's untenable. But I will also say that we are all going to have to talk about Tabor at some point, and I feel like if the feds cut off funding for anything, we will not financially be able to keep ourselves afloat. But also what we need to do for higher ed, there is not money to do it. K-12, we are playing with the shell game with funding K-12 right now. The governor has proposed a funding tweak. Like we fund based off a 4-year average number of students versus actuals. And he proposed to actually do actuals this year, which saves $120 million, but it's a net loss of millions of dollars to school districts when we are bottom 4 of how we fund K-12. And so
in the country,
we're gonna have to figure this out, the time when Colorado's university systems thrived well was before 1992 and Tabor. And we're just inflation is not helping us right now, right? So I do think that in a couple of years, we are all going to have to figure out what we want to invest in across Colorado, because it will be about higher ed.
Yeah.
It will be. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, sorry. So, okay.
We're short.
I was wondering if you all could exchange.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
We'll come back.
Because there's a question on the Zoom. I guess, Chris, if you're Chris Broderick's question on the Zoom, I don't know if you want to ask it yourself, or I can ask it read it from the chat.
Yeah, I just had a question for Senator Coleman. And thanks for coming, by the way. Thanks for all of you coming. As the new Senate President who is going to work closely with Governor Polis in the upcoming session, are you concerned about the governor's endorsement of RFK Jr. as Secretary of Health and Human Services, given Kennedy's opposition to childhood vaccines, COVID vaccines, fluoride, and his debunked conspiracy theories about autism, AIDS, antidepressants, and HIV, because health policies in the Trump administration are going to affect everyone in Colorado?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. Short answer is yes. I think we were all concerned about that. We were all at our retreats when that came across Twitter. And then I think the governor's staff showed up to our retreat last week on Friday, and walked in and said, "Hey, so we can answer as to why he did this." And it's like, no, there's no real answer that's going to suffice. What I will say as Senate President that I didn't have prior to 3 weeks ago is that I will have a weekly meeting with the governor and the Speaker of the House that I typically wouldn't have. I normally meet with the governor when my bill's getting vetoed.
Sorry, that's a very inside joke.
Listen, we don't always agree. You've been there. That's great. Yeah, no, so I definitely will have a conversation with him. And again, it's not just about that comment, but our policies speak for us. And there was concern about policies that were vetoed this legislative session that the communities that we represent said they wanted, and we had done the work, and it was a disagreement with the governor. I think part of what we want to talk about is how we have a legitimate conversation, and people have offered a veto session when it comes to the governor disagreeing with policies. Right now, if the governor decides to veto, he just sends a letter. There's no conversation like when you all come to the Capitol to testify in a committee, we have to hear from you. When we vote, we have to speak as to why we voted a certain way. And, you know, right now, if the governor disagrees with something or has a difference, makes a statement like he did online, there's less consequence. And what he says as the leader of the state of Colorado impacts us, which is why you're asking me this question. And so I have to answer for that. So there's got to be a way for us to be able to talk collectively from the same perspective. We don't always agree, but that was definitely not the right comment to make on social media. So
the legislature believes science is real. Sorry.
Yeah.
Bringing it back local, Rep. Bacon, you talked about transportation. So I have a two-part question. One, would it be possible for RTD to run a shuttle up and down Central Park Boulevard to help provide, especially transportation to high school and just other people trying to get from one end to the other? And we have a lot of new apartment dweller neighborhoods. Yeah. And the second part of the question would be, perhaps in conjunction with the 270 redevelopment, would it be possible to have a pedestrian/bicycle bridge that goes from near the Central Park Station across I-70 to the Northfield Shopping Center area or adjacent?
So the latter has been brought up a bunch of times, especially by Denver Public Schools. I remember that. So I think this is a great conversation to have with Chantel Lewis, who also served as the RTD director and city council. RTD, we've been fighting with them. So there was a ballot measure so they could debruce, right, to retain their funding. We've been fighting with them on routes and right-of-ways for a long time. In fact, it's like me and Copeland ride the buses, and we have a whole series called like, where does that go? Because none of these sidewalks are out, right? And so I think there is a way to kind of legislate for this, but it's still RTD's, you know, prerogative.
Sure.
We did a lot last session about transportation-oriented housing that had some of this in it. It's like building on the A line, you know, in the light rail lines. And so they should have some money. And we created an enterprise for transportation that oil and gas will fund so that they can't say they don't have these issues. But the route decision is RTD. Montbello just did it themselves. They have the people mover, like the Montbello connector. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
And you know, that's a CDC that's doing that. And I don't know if that's something that CPUN can do, but they get grants to do that. I do know DPS is interested in crossing I-70 because, and what they're gonna build over here is gonna be a bunch of kids in the high schools up here. So there is an opportunity for interagency, intergovernmental. They should have some money given this enterprise, but RTD controls the route.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're gonna get a pedestrian bridge to.
Yeah, they should. That's them and CDOT. Interestingly, because it's the highway. So it's CDOT, which is state agency.
Yeah.
Like between, and you know this. You know what RTD has, what the city has, and what CDOT has, and then the routes are completely RTD. And the sidewalks could be either CDOT, if it crosses I-70, it's likely CDOT and RTD and not City and County of Denver. Does that make sense? But I think we could probably write into some things because our control is with money. So if we give them money, we can put in the conditions, but otherwise they can do whatever they want.
Right.
And so I think that's a good thing. I will go back and double check to see if we can tweak any of the enterprise language or grant language that you will do pedestrian crossing.
Great.
Yeah, for sure.
We have a question on the Zoom. Daryl, if you want to unmute yourself, or I can read it from the chat.
Sure, I can unmute. Yeah, I was just wondering where y'all see more opportunities for participatory budgeting.
That's a I want to know the answer. Okay. So I will tell you then what our current budget process is. When you say participatory budgeting, would you like to be involved in budgeting, be updated? What's your idea of that?
I guess I was thinking more of processes where legislators, parts of government designate like, here is X amount of funds and a community gets to decide themselves what they want to do with that. And giving it to a small group to make those kinds of decisions.
And the mayor's been involved, right?
Yeah, we did that a little bit at DPS. So whatever exists that way, we would have to create via statute. And I'm not sure what we've done in that regard. I do know when we had federal grant, when we had the bountiful years of ARPA dollars, we actually did set up a lot of grants for community-based work and community-based organizations to get involved. And so there were a few grants that actually required that. I think I followed public safety because I was on judiciary, and you did one for housing. So that is not the default. And I think we would have to create circumstances around particular pools of money where we would have to legislate that that's how we budget. So I think that's a very interesting idea. My guess is we probably want to start with particular grants and particular programming, maybe not the entire Department of Corrections budget, but if you wanted to redo, I think anybody should redo right now. But that's a really interesting idea and something for us to think about to write into law around funding sources.
It'd be also interesting to see like how it's going in Denver and like what the process has been, and could we learn from that process?
Follow up with a link to
that would be
like
great.
What's been happening in Denver in the past couple of years.
Yeah, Daryl, I'll just add on to that. We ran a bill that provided funding to the Department of Local Affairs for affordable housing to be built, but it was only that the funding went to local organizations that did affordable housing development. And so it was a way for you to be able to determine what that looked like, how it worked. We did that, for instance, with my Bella Organizing Committee. They were able to get access to dollars to help build affordable housing. But yeah, that's the way it's traditionally worked, but definitely would love to see what Denver does and how we can model that same effort.
We only have a couple minutes left on this portion of the agenda. So if folks are okay, I have one overarching question, which is actually probably about 3 questions, but what's the best way for residents to connect with the work that each of you are doing at both like kind of policy, legislatively, and also constituent services wise? And then what are the most effective ways? Maybe this is another maybe it's another meeting topic in 2025, but in terms of like learning about what bills are coming, because it's a very short session, it gets completely insane during those last weeks, and staying on top of it, I mean, is very difficult for like the average person, and knowing, okay, how do I testify? Like if this bill is up in committee, how do I sign up to testify? How do I stay on top of these things? So if you all can just share like what are the ways that, residents like us can pay attention, get involved, and stay in touch.
So while I just want to show you something on the website, the short URL is COLEG, COLEG.gov, and it'll take you to the General Assembly's website. Hit committees for me, Jeff. Okay, so when you click on committees, during session, this is actually helpful because you can follow what like which committees might be of interest for you. And also on this page, if you click on it, you can sign up to testify. So see public testimony right there. We haven't changed it back from COVID that if you want to testify, you can testify via Zoom. And everyone typically has 2 or 3 minutes. And so if you click on that, you can click on which committee or bill. It may not be up and running yet because session isn't happening. But also on committee, if you scroll down, if you're interested in environment, hit energy and environment. What you will see is which bills are coming up that week. You'll see who's on that committee, right? Scroll down, you'll see the calendar, right? And so this was the last set of bills that we heard, but it will populate every week to tell you what bills are coming up. And you can click, you can see how much it costs, you can see all the things. If you want to testify in support of it, just hit public testimony. And so this actually moves much faster than I do personally, because I can tell you which bills I'm sponsoring, but as Vice Chair of Judiciary, we will hear 10 bills a day. And so if you want to know what's coming, there's like 8 people on staff whose job it is to keep people abreast of that. And so if you can just go to coleg.gov and committees, it works the same in the Senate, right? But that public testimony link is right up there if you want to testify. And, I think it's important. If we don't hear from you, we're making laws in a bubble. And I've seen the worst version of that. I think all of us have our own communication and websites and whatnot we'd be happy to share. During session, please know that the building is yours as well. I have now made it a habit to have chips and soda in my office because every student from Northfield and East finds my couch. And I'm right off the floor. And it's been fantastic, but please know our doors are always open if you want to stop by and visit or hear what's going on in committee or bring folks, but also it's our job to come to you. During session, it's a little tricky. After April, we're probably there 8 days a week, but we should be able to come anytime, but we will share our contact info if there's anything else you all wanted to share.
I think following up, because you did it last year post-session, and that's always nice. So we can figure out how to make that work, because I think it'd be good just to see, because 6 months from now, we're going to be in a way different world than we are today. And I think it'll be good to debrief and find out what we can do to help.
Yeah. I think just coming off the heels of my legislator orientation, I was like blown away at the constituent services that the Capitol has that we can engage with, that we can set you all up with. So if there's things that outside of like legislation that you're like this, I have this problem or this issue, we can always
hold you back. It's a celebratory moment, and it's like you stepping out like, look, I am, and you're claiming, and that's what's gonna make people love you and fall in love with you. You know what I'm saying? And like, you get.
Oh yeah, thank you.
You never
want
to be that person. And we all have, right? But yeah, I think reaching out and for those issues too, if that like, even if it's not a state level issue, we can get you connected with the right person at the local level, federal level, anything like that. And I think being accessible is so important to all of us, that if you're reaching out, that we have a response and I think that in thinking about setting up an office now and addressing each individual constituent's needs and meeting them where they're at. So whether that's coffee and individual meetings or town halls or a newsletter, that like I'm hoping to sort of do all those things so that we can, someone who comes to a town hall is a different type of person that then would want to do a one-on-one coffee. And I, like Bacon was saying, I just think it's so important to hear all of your perspectives and to understand what's actually happening in everyone's day-to-day life, and the impact of any policy we're thinking about.
Liz has my number. Just get ready to write it down. It's 911. It feels that way sometimes. No, but Liz has my number. If you want to get a hold, it's hard, with emails and our state phone that, it's a lot going on. But if you want to reach out directly, please do. Can I just ask a question? Raise your hand if you've actually been to the Capitol.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are folks who haven't been, and that's okay. I would love for the folks online and even those that are here, maybe we can organize a day at the Capitol for you all. So let us know January 8th is when the session begins through May, and we'd love to have you just to come be on the House floor, be on the Senate floor, go to a committee, and we have staff that can help navigate and help coordinate that for you. Just to be in the building. I was 29 when I first walked in that building. Born and raised. I drove by that building a billion times with my family and never went in. And I started 25 when I went in, 29 when I ran. So I would love for you all just to get in there and see that it's like tables and chairs and people talk. But it is your house. So we'd love for you to come through.
We'll definitely follow up on that, follow up on contact information, all of that.
Yeah, and you can get snacks from Red Bacon's office.
Yeah, and also I think, Jamie, you're and just kind of a final note, there's a great art exhibit actually at the Capitol right now. That is curated by Daniel Seymour, native artist. So
it is. It's in the Lieutenant Governor's office and the Governor's office and like the downstairs retention area. So I was there at the opening. It was pretty awesome. So.
Yeah, so it's now through February. Anyway, if we can time things correctly. All right, we are a little bit past time on this and need to move on to our community partners, but I just want to thank all the three of you for your time, your thoughtfulness, and your work. And yeah, we will definitely be following up with kind of getting more folks kind of paying attention and involved in the community. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Yeah. You want the shuttle?
Kind of transitioning, I'll just share
where I sent you.
Yeah. Just from like
again, just to get back to the slide deck. But we're moving on to, let's see, why is it paused?
I think there are various places where it would make sense. Like so maybe with that 270 project.
Any questions for Peoria? And that stopped? Yeah, so.
Yeah.
And that's for the Montello High School kids. So I'll flag for Chantel and I'll go learn to see if we have any conditions on issues.
Yep.
That's great. Thank you.
All right, so for community partner updates, I see Jesse is on Zoom with City Council District 8. If you'd like to just unmute.
I know she's heard that.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jesse. I'm the Senior Council Aide for Denver City Councilwoman Chantel M. Lewis. I've just got a couple of quick updates today. The main one concerns the city budget. So last week, November 12th, because of Veterans Day, which is a Tuesday, City Council approved the 2025 city budget. Prior to its final passage, each city council member was able to run amendments to the budget, changing things that they wanted to see that weren't previously included in the city budget. Councilwoman Lewis's office ran 7 amendments. They got 3 of them through, which is actually not bad for how the amendment process usually goes. Of those, one of them was an amendment to the budget that increased support for small businesses impacted by city construction. This added an additional $1.1 million to the budgeted amount and should help businesses across the city deal with the impacts of citywide construction, especially in the East Colfax BRT corridor. She also ran an amendment that created 2 new residential inspector positions for the Department of Public Health and the Environment. This will really allow for better inspection of rental properties and better protections for tenants in the city. In addition, she was a co-sponsor on an amendment that added an additional $3 million in rental assistance. And rental assistance, obviously very needed as Denver faces another year of record evictions. And upstream prevention, in other words, preventing somebody from getting evicted, actually costs the city less in the long run than having to pay for the cost of rehousing people once they have slipped into homelessness. So all 3 of these amendments should be pretty impactful, and she's very happy with the work that she was able to get done on the budget. Moving on to the elections, local elections, just a quick update on 2 of the ballot measures that Councilwoman Lewis had sponsored. One of them was 2R, which is the Affordable Denver Fund. That one did narrowly fail. Councilwoman Lewis is pretty disappointed about that. It was just a couple of percentage points away from passing. And basically, with the failure of this ballot measure, it means that we are going to have to work to find housing for basically 25,000 families over the next 10 years. The good news is that the mayor was one of the partners on that ballot measure. And so the councilwoman's office will be working hard with the mayor to figure out sort of what the next steps are. And we'll continue with that work to ensure that Denver's housing stock it continues to increase with the need over the next 10 years. The second of those ballot measures was 2U. This was the citywide collective bargaining agreement. That one did pass, I'm happy to say, and that will allow city employees to form bargaining units and unionize. There is a 1-year grace period built into it. So it won't be immediate, but then after that, basically various groups of city workers can band together and form bargaining units and negotiate with the city for job benefits. So this is a really, really pro-labor step in an increasingly pro-labor city, and we're happy to see it. And the last update from the council office for this month is that the 41st annual Hiawatha Davis Junior Senior Luncheon is happening on December 6th in the Doubletree Hotel that's on the corner of Quebec and Martin Luther King Jr. And this is a free event for seniors. The office does provide a traditional turkey dinner for the seniors, 55 plus. It is free to attend. However, you will need to call into the office. I will put a number in the chat after this just to call and make that reservation. Again, it's free. And if you are a senior or you know a senior, give us a call or let them know to give us a call, and we can get that set up for you. And that is pretty much it.
I also see, well, are there any questions, I guess, for the city council office? We're on Zoom. Okay. All right, then we'll move on to Lieutenant Hines. Hassan, if you'd like to provide an update on District 5.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kevin Hines. I'm the lieutenant responsible for the Central Park neighborhood here in Denver, in Denver Police District 5. So good news, in the last month or so, we've actually been trending down in virtually all of the major metrics of crime in both Precinct 511, which is north of I-70, and Precinct 512, which is south of I-70. We're down 37.4% in property crime in Precinct 511 and 31.2% in Precinct 512. So we've been making a lot of strides on some areas that have been troubling us throughout the year. In the last few meetings, I know I talked about larceny being a big issue that kind of drives crime metrics in the area just because we have such a retail base out here. We are still up 96% for the year in larcenies in Precinct 511, but we're down 34% in the last 28 days. So I attribute a lot of that to some enforcement operations we've been doing and some partnerships we've had with local businesses to try to get that under control. We're also seeing a 21% decrease in those crimes in Precinct 512. So one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight was some steps we're taking to try to address some of the crime in the area. Some of you may have noticed in the news, but the Denver Police Department was recently able to acquire a number of new e-bikes that we've pushed out to the patrol districts for our patrol officers. We were recipients of some of that grant money out here in District 5, and we spent the last couple of weeks training our officers up on these new tools. Now, as many of you know, our officers have been out on bicycles for years, but the e-bikes add a lot of capability for our team just because the increased speed and less effort the officers have to put into it expands the range that they can use those and gives us an ability to use that tool in more of a conventional patrol function than we could with the bicycles that we used in the past. With conventional bicycles, sometimes we had to be limited in how often we deployed those just because they could delay us in responding to 911 calls. Our hope is with the faster e-bikes we have available, we'll be able to get more officers out on those tools. We found bikes are a great way for officers to interact with the community, learn more about what's going on in the precincts. And frankly, it's also a great way to sneak up on crime. So we're starting to use those out, particularly out in the Northfield area right now, where we've dealt with a lot of those larcenies and some of the robberies we've had over the last year. Our teams will be out there using those. They're pretty good for stealth deployments, but you may see our officers out there and get a chance to interact with them. Obviously, many of you have noticed it is November, so it's a little colder. We won't have our officers out riding in snowstorms because, well, we don't want them to quit. So we'll try to use that for better weather, but we will have them out there. We've also picked up some grant money for some enforcement operations we're going to be running out there to try to target some of those areas in particular where we've seen pattern thefts. Again, things trending in the right direction right now. We have been looking at some additional enforcement for traffic concerns that some of you have communicated with me, particularly in the areas around the schools. We're trying to make sure our traffic officers get out there and address some of those concerns. So I don't want to take up too much of anyone's time here tonight. I do have our community resource officer, Danae Friends, is on tonight, and I think she was going to share a couple updates about some upcoming meetings we have as well. And Danae, are you on? Going once. I don't know if she's having some technical issues here. I know I can see she's on the meeting. Give me just a second here. She said she is trying to unmute currently, so give us just a moment here. One event I can speak to is I do know we have our monthly commanders meeting tomorrow night. So if any of you are interested in joining us, that'll be over at our District 5 station. We're just off of 45th and Peoria, co-located with the 911 center. And we'll be meeting there at 6 p.m. tomorrow if you'd like to join us. Danae, it looks like you're unmuted now.
Hear me, everybody?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. I was having some trouble unmuting. The only update I have is tomorrow we have our monthly commanders meeting. As many of you know, we always have it on the third Thursday of every month at 6 p.m., both virtual and in person. We decided to move it to Wednesday only for this month just because we didn't want to compete with football. And but then after that we will resume as normal. We will not have a commanders meeting for December. We want everybody to enjoy the holidays, so we won't have one for them, but we will resume per normal January 2025 third Thursday every month. But that is all I have right now.
Thanks. There's a question in the chat. Is there Zoom information for the commanders meeting tomorrow, Zoom or Teams?
Yes, I think it was sent out earlier, but I plan on sending it out again to everybody tomorrow.
Is it possible to put it in the chat as well, since I don't know if Destiny McKelvin might not be on the email list that gets that information?
I could try. I'm having a little technical difficulties with Zoom tonight. I'm not sure if my phone needs an update. But if not, could I email it to you possibly and to send out to everybody?
Destiny, if you can give me your email address also, I'll just make sure you get the information.
Danae, is it the same Teams link? Is it the same Teams link every month? Because I have it from last month. I can post in there.
Yes, it should be.
Okay, great. Then Brian will share it in the chat.
It's in the chat.
All right, thank you so much. I think Jack, are you the MCA rep?
I am the MCA tonight. I wear many hats around here. We invite you all to join us at the annual Winter Welcome this Friday, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. in the East 29th Avenue Town Center. 64 vendors and our early season holiday market. So we look forward to you all being there. The tree and our light display will get switched. That's some fun alliteration right there. Flip will be switched. That happens at 6 p.m. and then we go late into the evening until 8 p.m. For all of you. It's supposed to be nice on Friday, 65 degrees. So hopefully that weather is better than today. So we'll look forward to seeing you then. Our annual members meeting, if you own property here in the Central Park community, that makes you a member of the MCA, and we need your vote. So please make sure that you stop by our annual members meeting. It is December 15th. Right here in this room. We need people to come. We need people to vote because if we don't have a quorum, we can't adopt a budget. And if we can't adopt a budget, the streets do not get plowed and the grass does not get mowed. So please come so that we can get things adopted and all the money can keep flowing as it needs to flow. Otherwise, you can always find information about us on our website, mca80238.com. That's all I have.
All right. We have the next community email goes out on Monday. If you can give me the kind of member meeting thing, I'll make sure that gets into the CPUN email. Okay, and then Daria from the Sam Gary Branch Library, if you want to give us the library updates.
Hi everyone, you guys can hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So we have just a few updates for December. We will have an evening with a local author, Cynthia Swanson. She has an upcoming book that's titled Anyone But Her. So I'd love to have you guys join us. It's on Wednesday, December 4th in our community room at 6 o'clock. And then the Sunday of that same week, December 8th, we'll have a couple of events in the afternoon. There's going to be a puzzle swap at 2 o'clock, some delicious hot chocolate to enjoy. And then following that at 3:30, we'll have a candle DIY workshop. That one is specifically for teens and their adults. So if you have kind of like an older kiddo in your life and you're looking to bond with them, this is a really good time. You can make gifts for each other or other family members. Again, this is going to be in the community room at 3:30. Definitely register for that one. There's a link in the chat. Then our usual tween chess club will happen on December 10th, but the tween Lego club will be canceled because it is on Christmas Eve and we'll be closing early, speaking of which. So the library will be closing at 4 o'clock on Tuesday, December 24th, and we'll stay closed all day, Christmas Day on December 25th. And the other thing is that we will be taking a break from all programming, including story time. So there will be no story time, no programs starting Saturday, December 25th. And we'll come back on Monday, January 6th. And we will be coming back with some very exciting winter reading programs for adults. So make sure you keep an eye on our calendar and our social media. You guys have any questions?
Okay. Here, so thank you so much. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And that's partner updates for this month. I think that we're over the community hour now, and we'll start the board hour. I think if we can just take about a 2 to 3 minute break for at least the folks in the room, and if people are sitting down on the Zoom, like just to stretch our legs before we move into the kind of the board agenda. It's relatively light, so I think we can get through it pretty quickly. So you want to mute the Zoom for now, Jack? Just for folks to know, the public is welcome to be here for the board hour. It's just, we're just going to kind of discuss some board topics, but all right, if you want to mute it again.
We didn't go that way.
My computer. If folks don't mind, I'm not going to share the slide deck on the screen just because I actually I think I'll just kind of follow it. It's fairly light. And I just a second. Oh, there we go. And I would much rather just kind of see the folks to the extent that we can on the Zoom meeting, but not be just kind of staring at a slide deck for the rest of this meeting. So thank you all for your patience during the break. We will do committee report outs now. I actually have for education and safe streets, Carol is ill tonight, so she actually sent me her update by email. So just we'll start with the education committee update from Carol. The committee chair, Carol Hunter, will speak with individual members of the education committee regarding their participation on the committee. Specific needs regarding safety, transportation, and volunteerism were identified in the committee survey, and the committee and community members are needed to initiate and facilitate those needs. New members are welcome. Contact Carol Hunter with questions. Okay, and that is her update. I also have an update again by text from Amy for the Safe Streets Committee report out that they discussed yesterday, supporting neighbors and becoming advocates for their issues of concern and trying to hold the city accountable for promised improvements to Central Park streets. The next meeting for the Safe Streets Committee, I believe, is the first Wednesday in December. So that information will go out in our next community email. And then for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, I see Mandel, you're on. I don't know, I think Daryl is no longer on, but if you wanted to give just a quick update on the November field trip that we had, and we finished up the book club as well.
Yeah, sure. So we met as a small group at History Colorado. We visited the Sand Creek Massacre exhibit, and that was on November 2nd. Very powerful exhibit. I'd suggest that if you haven't gone, you should go and find out the history behind the Sand Creek Massacre in Colorado. We met and then we had a little reflection afterwards, a group of us from the DEI committee. And I think there was one member from the board as well that was there. And then as Liz mentioned earlier, we wrapped up the Just Action book club, How to Challenge Segregation Enacted under the under the Color of Law. That was on October 22nd that we finished that up. And so that's pretty much it for now. When's the next meeting, Liz?
We don't meet in, it's the end of January, actually.
Okay.
So I think Kathy also is here and participated in the DEI committee book club.
Book club was great.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you have any kind of like 1 or 2 sentences on takeaways from that book, but I just wanted to thank you for joining us at the monthly meeting, since you've been coming to the committee meetings.
And I'm going to try to start the committee. As much work as maybe people have done in equity, that book just expanded. It was so detailed, and the exciting conversations about what we could do here is still in conversation. So that was exciting.
Yeah, no, thank you. So yeah, it's the next DEI committee meeting will be the fourth Tuesday of January, whenever that is. So if our next meeting for the monthly meeting is the 21st, it'll be the 28th.
Got you. Thank you. And I'd be remiss not to say thank you to Daryl Eder for leading that, taking charge on that whole initiative. So thank you very much, even if you're not here to hear it. I want to thank you.
No, this is being recorded, so it's good.
calendar reminders for those.
Yes, yeah, I'll send out the other, so actually, this is just a point of kind of like using the CPUN website 101. You can actually add any of our events to your like calendar of choice. When you go to the event, there's a little button that says add to calendar, and then it gives you the option of, you know, iCal or Google Calendar or whatever. And so you can do that, but I can also send out the email, like, or the kind of calendar invitations to get it on there.
And there's a subscribe to calendar.
Yes.
So all that would get you all.
For every.
Yeah. So, okay, thank you, Brian. And then for health and safety, for health and safety and actually also sustainability, these are two committees that have kind of been on hiatus and being redeveloped over the past year. Jeff Barron let me know that because of work obligations, he stepped down from both the Health and Safety Committee and the CPUN board. And so I did meet with David. So David, if you'd like to kind of give an update of the current status of health and safety.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about scheduling cadence and figuring that out. Just hopefully starting fresh in the new year with an assigned scheduling time, and then also reaching out to Keisha Sarpong from the Domestic Violence Fatality Review Board. So the Health and Safety Committee met with her and had a really interesting conversation, and have extended an invitation to her to come to one of our large community meetings.
And you also had mentioned you're going to be going to the commanders.
Oh yeah, I'm going to the commanders meeting tomorrow too, and it's on my calendar too. So I was like, I'm gonna be too. So yeah.
And then I think that the two folks who had previously been heading up sustainability was it was Mark Meringer and Brad Rivera. Brad started a nonprofit and has also left the board. So if anybody is interested in sustainability, I know Heather, you're working on the community survey now, so I'm not going to push you on sustainability. But if folks are interested in sustainability issues, I think what Rep. Bacon was saying about transportation and air quality. I think especially if you live north of I-70 in Central Park, those are fairly big issues with the highways that come straight through and Commerce City and Suncor just across the way. So yeah, I just would encourage anybody who is interested, I guess, can I direct them to you, Heather?
Yes, please.
And just kind of rebuilding sustainability work in the organization.
Yeah, we'd had some ideas on kind of some community events, maybe for next year, like a joint event with Safe Streets, like a bike, the Arsenal kind of event, learning about the Arsenal, but also biking and people getting together. So maybe we could get that together for the spring. But also certainly a lot of other things that maybe an opportunity to come up with some new ideas.
Well, I think that also, I think what folks have discussed also is like both education, safe streets, and sustainability are kind of all committees that are very concerned with kind of non-car options and essentially getting up and down Central Park Boulevard specifically, but also like throughout the community. So I think there's lots of points for collaboration and alignment with the committees.
I'm taking my environmental impact class, and that's usually what I'm most involved with, the sustainability committee. But we do a lot of gardening projects, and the Montbello Spiral Garden is right here, and so I could talk to you about that too.
All right, thank you. So we're now on time. We're done with committee report outs. The treasurer's report, I think. If you wanted to share your screen, Brian, it was pretty short and sweet.
It is very short and very sweet. So far this year, we spent the money to do some of the changes that needed to the logo and the website. That's the majority of that $1,300 plus the monthly fees that we have for MailChimp. And then we had the joint RNO meeting, those of you that were there, we did a third of the food for that. Our reserves are still at 9,000. And so I would just remind committees that we did approve an allotment for each of the committees for events. Sadly, sustainability use, but I didn't see any bills from it. So.
Well, yeah,
So-
I'll get with Mark and just find out,
Yeah.
like, if he wants to get reimbursed for
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So-
so but remind, if you need that doesn't require board approval, it just requires board notification. So when you're doing your committee updates, if you're gonna spend money, just notify the board as part of your update. So that's all that I have.
Yeah, thank you. I think that actually one point on the budget that actually I should mention, and maybe it'll be part of the community survey. We actually are not going to be spending money on survey software. Heather has kind of taken the lead on the community survey, and we're doing it in Google Forms, which is free. So that kind of frees up the $200+ that had been approved for it. In a conversation that we were having with some of the members of the DEI committee, this might be a budget proposal at some point, but just talking about making sure that we have translated materials, like when we are having events or when we are doing outreach materials, having some money budgeted for professional translation. Anyway, I was just thinking that since we aren't going to be spending the survey money, we might come back and make a proposal on just having a little money away for that. And that is for it would be for any kind of, yeah, I think written materials that for any of the committees. That's what it would touch. So just a heads up on that, actually. And then, so now, just on board topics, there's a couple of comms and outreach ones. I think we'll get to the community survey, but I just want to give a quick update on the welcome bags. I sat in on the Central Park Business Association Welcome Bag Committee meeting yesterday. They ordered 1,000 new bags, but they're, I think, literally on a slow boat from China at the moment. And so they were supposed to arrive this month and are not. And so they're projecting toward the end of December. So the next round of welcome bags will go out in January 2025 at the earliest. So we'll reach out when there's an opportunity for that. Basically when the bags are there. Matt had a great idea of some of the 25 bags, because each group sends out 25 welcome bags. Contacting the property managers of the new apartments that are coming in, and setting aside some of those welcome bags for folks who are renters and not just doing it based on home sales. So we'll start kind of in 2025 implementing that idea. Okay, and then we also have a work in progress is outreach to the resident councils for income restricted apartments in the community. And we're kind of right now, like the ball is in somebody else's court to kind of pull together the meeting and contact information for that. But just so folks know that that's on our radar and is something that we're going to be working towards, just kind of forging better connections between this RNO and folks who rent, particularly in those buildings in the community. And now I'll turn it over to Heather Tabano to talk about the upcoming community survey.
Yeah, so we've pivoted a little bit on the community survey, Mark leaving. And so previously we were going to use another survey software, but it was a few $100s. I'd never used it before. So we're going to do it with Google Forms. So it's going to look a little different than it has in years past, but it was going to anyways. I think we've talked to all of the committees and gotten your thoughts and feedback on changing questions. So got a rough draft. I don't know, maybe send it around. It'd be great to have everyone kind of take a look at it, even just do the survey, test it out, see typos, function, stuff like that before we get it sent out. I've got to do some additional, the logo and
color.
Yeah, do I have access actually to like editing?
No, but I can.
If you can do that, because I can go in and do the header and branding pretty easily.
There's a few questions I wanna.
Yeah, and I have it on my to-do list and just to add some final questions and but we'll be sending out a rough draft. I would say realistically, since Thanksgiving is next week, it's probably
Week after.
What?
Week after.
Oh,
So it's next week.
No,
Thursday.
Thanksgiving is a week from Thursday.
I don't like that answer. I'm just not gonna believe that that's it. I don't like you.
Well,
maybe
I would say
first week of December.
Yeah, but I think, do you mean for launching the survey or okay?
Or even a little after.
Maybe, well, I think that, yeah, we should kind of talk about, if anybody has thoughts on ideal timing, because I know this is basically going to be launched like when everybody's doing holiday things. So would folks say like save it till January or like?
That's when everybody's got new energy and lots of ideas.
Have lots of opinions about what they want.
24 will be behind them.
Actually, people will be activated by
Positive by 25.
Yeah.
Inauguration.
So I think I think also like, I know you've had a lot going on and you've been working on it. So I think like it sounds reasonable to just aim for January, like after the holidays for it.
Yeah, it's in a good spot. So I think flexible.
And that's, I just like, I see it on my to-do list, like to send you some of those questions every day.
Okay,
so
well, I did get back from.
I haven't seen a list of questions yet.
No, we're talking about that was just the comms committee was looking at the questions, and then Heather was going to kind of finalize that rough draft and circulate that draft for the board.
I have a question or two regarding property taxes that I would be interested in adding. So
could you send those questions to Heather and then we'll get that on?
Property taxes, property taxes and then HOA fees. Because both of those things have gone well. Your HOA fees are about to go up by a lot. And your property taxes have gone up by a lot. When I say a lot,
they have. I looked at my monthly payments and was like, wait, this is all for property.
Like, so property taxes like got a gazillion dollars. Your HOA fees are gonna go up $8 beginning in January.
Okay.
It's gonna be, a whole $56. But I'm
not as much as my sub HOA that's going to $130.
And that's after our insurance premiums tripled. So we have to deal with that. But just trying to take the pulse of some thinking on that. And if the survey is already going out, I think that's valuable data.
People will also, I think that, so I think definitely send those questions to Heather. And then once we kind of have the questions finalized, or not finalized, but it's a draft, we'll circulate that in December, and then with the aim of launching it in January. So I think, that sounds like a much more humane timeline than trying to do all of this before the before the holidays.
Can I ask a follow-up? So Jack, you said the HOA, the MCA dues are going to go up $8. How does that translate to the businesses and that business property?
Is that square footage?
So it's based on so it's assessed based on every 2,000 square feet. And so at the present, I want to say I'll get you an educated answer.
My question is that, the residents are, obviously using most of it, but is there an opportunity?
There has traditionally been a belief. So residential assessments occupy 75% of revenue and commercial assessments occupy 25% of revenue. Although property is split closer, it doesn't align with total property ownership. And the rational basis for that has traditionally been that the residents make use of amenities and the businesses don't. I think one could disagree about the impact of having attractive landscaping and a large customer base in the residents and that impact on the commercial. And what the makeup should be is the topic of vigorous debate, and to spare you all that debate and the brain damage that comes with it, that's the current thinking. And so for commercial, it's currently $6. It's currently $5 per 2,000 square feet. It is set to go up by $1 for properties that are designated as large commercial industrial. So that's the warehouses for our, I think, the East 29th Ave town centers and this place and the various retail. That's $13 per 2,000 square feet. And that's going up by $2. And then there are, so that's compared to an $8 increase for residential. So yes, that's, I think, again, there could be reasonable disagreement about whether or not those should be similar.
And if I felt strongly about it, I'd come to the.
If you felt strongly about it, you should come see us tomorrow at noon at our public hearing on the budget, where you can express that concern. I ultimately don't know what our board's going to do tomorrow, but that is the subject of their discussion, because in previous conversations, that imbalance was identified, and some people like it, some people don't. I don't know if anybody on our board knows how to count votes, so I don't know where that's going to go.
Okay. No, that's.
I'll say from a property taxes, separate and distinct. Property taxes will likely, so this year was not a reassessment year. Next year is a reassessment year. So when they reassess all the properties, we are anticipating that there will be a upward growth in assessed valuation, which will translate to an increase in property taxes. Of course, those property taxes, majority of which fund debt service on the $800 million in bonds. You're the accountant.
Okay.
Most of that, about 98% funds bond debt service, and about 2% of that pays for operations and maintenance costs, which is money that goes over here to build new things. Well, not building, it's a mess, but you will likely see increased property taxes in property tax year 26. So they'll reassess in 25, and the new assessment rates will take place in 26. So there's a legitimate, then there's a bunch of conversation about lower interest rates, and if bonds are refinanced at lower interest rates, whether or not we should continue to pay bond debt service at a rate that is aligned with a higher interest rate, so you're paying more, but for a shorter amount of time, rather than paying less for a longer amount of time. That's another decision that has to get made. And then there's some litigation and contracts and other stuff mixed in there that, again, will get brain damage.
Is that, I guess, is that conversation happening in the metro districts then? So, okay. So.
Yeah, some do.
If you look at your I actually recommend looking at your property tax bill, and it shows you what, the different mill levies and what goes to education, what goes to the metro districts. And I think the highest proportion of it goes to the metro districts in our.
My home, we pay $10,000 a year in taxes to the metro districts. And then everything else is less than that. So, you know, if I did not live here, I would be paying $10,000 less in property taxes a year. I think that's a common sentiment that is experienced across the board. Now, the idea is that all but 2% of that will go away in the next 10 years.
3%.
Okay, fine, 3.
That's 2050 or something.
Well, so that's,
Yeah, I
It was
feel
supposed to
like
be-
this is.
It was supposed to be 2025, just to be clear.
Then it kept getting.
Then it just
kept extended.
Yeah,
so we're gonna talk about this in way more depth.
Yeah.
Matt and I are gonna come back and talk about this in way
That's
more
what
depth
I was gonna say. I need you guys on the agenda for possibly
January, February.
I was gonna say the February.
Yeah, we'll.
The February meeting.
We'll get into the minutia on this. What's relevant to survey is that if we're about to go to the neighborhood and ask them for their opinion, very interested to know what their opinion is on particularly that question of, should we have lower taxes for longer or higher taxes for shorter? I'm very interested in that particular.
Not how long you want to stay in the neighborhood, or
I mean, and
how long you plan on being in your house.
that's a legitimate question. What do you?
But I think for those of you that haven't been, like, if you took your house and you put it in Park Hill, you would pay half as much in property taxes. Right. And that was always, going back to 2003, 2004, it was always supposed to be 20-year debt. But because of the downturn in the economy, they had to refinance, and then it got extended out.
So as it stands right now, when the year 2051 comes around, there will be no more debt. There is multiple different variations of a plan that could cut that time with very.
Will be of retirement age.
The current scenario is closer to 10 years though, that the loan be paid off. So there will probably be another debt issue, so that could change. Although they're telling us that that would still be held true even with an additional issue.
Yeah, we're gonna talk more in the.
I was gonna say, given the amount of time we have just spent talking about this right now,
yeah.
I think including the questions, I was gonna say, yeah, including the questions about it, partly to also just raise awareness that it is like something that is, these are things that are coming up. It should definitely be on the survey. So, okay.
I just need to sophisticatedly write that question.
Yeah.
Give me a little bit of context too, and I
touch base on.
Yeah. What?
Oh, yeah. I was talking to a lot of, I didn't know the survey was that far down the road.
We can come up with a good question.
I'll go into it more, but it's like, and it's the metro district's vote on.
There's no way of phrasing.
Refinancing the debt, extending the term.
Oh, no, I agree with you.
So anyway,
But
yeah, it's a
putting it out.
complicated issue that I feel like is a very big issue in our neighborhood. And I think it's also just interesting. It's also, it will also be an interesting question because I'm reaching out to CPD to follow up on some of the stuff that was discussed at the October 15th joint RNO meeting. And I think the question of like, when there are new developments, like what are non-metro district ways of financing the same stuff that a metro district does? And I think that's a question. I think Cherry Creek did a non-metro district development recently, and just how that affects, residents. Those are decisions that are made before there are residents in the development, but then it affects those residents. So it's an interesting, it's an interesting issue. It also is like very deep in the weeds. We can kind of, it's now 8:15. So I'll kind of move on. Yeah, but anyway, that's coming to a community meeting in 2025.
There's a presentation that several years back that the advisors for Park Creek did that talks about how the funding was done, but you guys may want to.
Oh no, we have our own presentation.
Okay.
That presentation was very singularly focused.
It was, yeah.
So, okay, the next item, and actually I think we should just kind of move it maybe to either email, but this is just a development update just to let folks know that a representative for the owners of the shops in Northfield had reached out in September or October, and actually 2 weeks ago, it was about 2 weeks ago, a small group of us Yeah, so Stockdale Investments, I think, is the owner. Anyway, they are planning on redeveloping 2 of the vacant parking lots that are in, essentially vacant parking lots that are in the northeast corner of the shops at Northfield. And they're kind of making other changes to the commercial businesses that are part of that, but they also are going for rezoning to do residential development of those about 16 acres worth of concrete right now, like just a heat island. And it's kind of in very preliminary phases. I don't know, there's I think there's not so much that we can that needs to be shared out, but I think that this is just generally to let folks who are in this meeting, folks on the board, know that they're beginning the rezoning process for that. And now is the time when they're kind of soliciting just opinions on what residents would like to see. I think it's, I'll have to go through the details and we'll just send out a follow-up email with some of the details of what would be part of that development. And as in terms of for sale, for rent, but basically the process is they have to get the rezoning and then they start the planning process. So it's very preliminary right now. Jack, I don't think they were even aware that they had to go before the design review committee, for it. So
we had never heard of Jack.
Yeah, well, I know. So
I don't even know what they're doing, so.
Yeah, no, so anyway, it was interesting. I will share if anybody else, so it was the officers for CPUN, and then also Matt and Jack are both on the Metro districts, and so I extended the invitation to attend this meeting with them. I don't know if you have any observations you want to share out from it.
Said a lot of good things, like they have good vision, and then it's gonna cost them money and it's gonna be a bad idea all of a sudden, and they don't know what they're doing.
They were involved with some neat projects, including McGregor Square and the Dairy
Block.
What's it called?
Dairy Block.
Dairy Block. I don't.
It's in Lodo, yeah.
But anyway, they do. I think they have a neat plan. What they showed us is going to be like 1,500 units right across the street here. And then kind of with a pedestrian walkway connecting it to
the green
the driveway between the movie theater and Macy's. And then so that will no longer be a drivable road. That'll just be a pedestrian mall. So really nice improvements, I think. And I think it'll bring, more use to the area. And it, won't be dark for so many hours of the night, and just empty parking lots like there are now. So, but they have a long way to go.
Yeah, I was gonna say, they have a ways to go, but I just wanted to make folks aware of that, and just to know that that's kind of coming down the pike. And then just we got about 10 minutes left. I think we can go through this very fast because it's just the last item. This is our final meeting for 2024. Everybody gets December off. So first, I just want to thank everybody for, their participation and in involvement in CPUN and just in our community in general. And I just wanted to give a look ahead basically for Q1 of 2025. And so our next meeting is January 21st. And our guest speakers are Ann Dang and Alea Evison from Radian, which is an organization that put together an RNO equity toolkit and specifically focused on Denver's registered neighborhood organizations. And I think they're involved with discussions with Councilman Cashman's office and with the city on I think it's an Office of Neighborhood Engagement, which is kind of what RNOs were meant to do. And I think it's somewhat reforming the model with the city. So that's an opportunity to speak with them about what's happening at that level and also what we can do as an organization, particularly around just the outreach and including, like basically making our we here a bigger we. So in Central Park. So I'm looking forward to that. The day before our next meeting is actually the parade. And I don't know if any if folks like raise your hands if you've participated in the MLK parade. Okay. But there have been conversations among, I think, both Kathy and Jamie and other folks. We're talking about maybe getting a group together from Central Park to participate in the parade in 2025, just to kind of kick off the year. And it also, I brought it up with the other RNO folks that we had the joint meeting with in October. So East Colfax, Northeast Park Hill also, and Montbello, and just to see if that might be a good opportunity, instead of having a formal meeting, just having a group from all of our neighborhood groups, just to kind of convene together, you know, depending on the weather, at the parade and participating in that to kind of kick off the year. So anyway, just if folks have any thoughts on that, I think it might be nice before we just kind of jump into meeting mode.
We should do that. Let's do it.
Okay. That's and then so potential upcoming topics after the January meeting. Metro Districts 101, you guys are on the agenda for the February meeting, which I believe is February 18th about. And then I also have been speaking with Tammy Holloway from the Foundation for Sustainable Urban Communities, and just kind of talking about what their organization's work looks like as the community is reaching full build out. And so either she'll have some time on the February agenda as well, which I think might actually kind of go well with discussing the metro districts, because it's kind of another organization that is kind of funded through the home sales in the neighborhood, and also they also get grants for different initiatives they have, but just so that folks can learn a little bit more about their role in our community. And then I know that David is reaching out. I would say probably it would be like for the March meeting is the domestic violence fatality review program, and just kind of talking about community safety, and an issue that I think that we really don't address very much. It's very difficult to address, but we have had a few domestic violence related homicides in Central Park over the past few years. And so I think that it is a really important topic, and I'm hoping that we can kind of just raise more awareness and kind of get folks kind of thinking about safety in that lens. And then we'll be in board recruitment season. We have 4 openings currently. I'll be checking in with folks if they want to re-up. But if anybody's interested in joining the CPUN board, we will have some openings. So just want to get that on folks' minds. And now we have about 5 minutes left if anybody else wants to share. But that's what I've got for the last few minutes.
Just wanted to add, so one of the things that Park Creek Metro District did was build a bunch of public art, and the curator is Barbara Neal. She's leaving her position, but she's going to give kind of a valedictory address twice on Thursday, right here in the Cube. The first at 9 a.m. During the Park Creek board meeting. She'll be giving just a review of all the public art around the neighborhood. And then the Central Park, and that meeting will be on Zoom. So if you're not able to attend in person, you can.
Can you share that
Zoom
information with like the CPUN?
Yeah, so link for they're kind of secretive about that Zoom link, but there is one.
We can find it. Send it to you.
We can get it to the board. You know, it's day after tomorrow. And anyway, that evening, she's doing another presentation for Central Park artists, which I do not think will be on Zoom, but we'll be right here in the Cube. So if you have time and you want to find out more about, you know, the millions of dollars spent on public art, and some of it came from Park Creek, some of it came from RTD, I think some came from the city cultural and scientific district and all that. So so there were different funding sources for the art, but it's all out there, and so it'll be a good opportunity to learn about it.
It's almost 2 million.
Yeah, that's billions.
Is there a map? Is there a map of the different public art pieces?
On our website.
It's on
the MCA website?
MCA's website does have, and that's kind of what she's gonna, I think, go through is the presentation. That's, I think, on the MCA website. I think there are photos of everything. And I'll let y'all know when we're gonna do it, but we're trying to schedule a live tour with Barbara as well. And again, kind of talking about the artists and the people that went into forming the decision-making and how it all came about. So I think it could be interesting.
It's a very interesting story. And the things that you wouldn't know or think about that you drive by every day, are part of it. And there was a lot, this started back in 2004, basically. And, for the better part of 15 years, through the downturn and through what was, originally 75% south of I-70, 25% north of I-70 kind of changed. And so there were other projects, and projects have been moved because of, one of the projects was decommissioned because it was broken by, lawnmower rocks. And, so it's really cool. Barb is an amazing woman. So
Adding to it?
no, the money's all gone.
Yeah.
There will be one more project in the parcel 8 development. Details are not yet known, but we did learn that there's a little bit of money left, so we'll be doing one more project. We thought they were done, but apparently
the committee was decommissioned. So
I don't know. I just apparently they realized there's more money in the account, so we should spend it.
Okay. Well, if there is like a committee forming just for that, like
there'll be a selection committee that there's always a resident or two on the selection committees.
Well, Danielle Seawalker is one of our neighbors, and she's a mural artist.
It won't be a mural, it'll be a sculpture of some sort.
That's the weird thing that you learn is like, what is public art and what isn't, and why out here, like, you wouldn't do a mural, things like that.
I do recommend folks visit the Sand Creek Greenway murals, though. Those are a lot of fun. Exactly. Yeah. So, okay, I guess if I can just mention one thing, if anybody feels the need to put some good out in the world right now, I am collecting socks and hats and gloves and hand warmers that basically any sort of winter warming items. Kathy and David have donated to it, but basically I've done this before, and I'm basically doing this through the month of November into December. But basically I collect these items and then give them to different organizations that do street outreach to folks experiencing homelessness. And so I've donated to Denver Street Outreach Collaborative and Harm Reduction Action Center. There's also Mutual Aid Monday. So if anybody is interested in that, I'll send out a quick email, but it's just a very small thing that has a pretty significant public health effect for folks experiencing homelessness, because particularly socks, like being in wet and cold conditions and not being able to dry them or warm up leaves you vulnerable to all kinds of infections and also frostbite. And I have unfortunately worked with more than one person who has lost limbs and in addition to toes or fingers to frostbite, and they get released back out onto the streets directly from the hospital under those conditions. So this is a very small kind of preventive measure that can help folks stay safe. So there's that. Yeah, see me if you want to contribute. And it is now exactly 8:30, so I will just say happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays. We'll be in touch by email, but see you at the next meeting in January or at the Moraine